Did you know that heavy menstrual bleeding is one of the leading causes of iron deficiency in women? This means there could be women in this very room who are iron deficient and unaware. สวัสดีค่ะ พวกเรา Iron Women มาจากโรงเรียนสาธิตนานาชาติมหิดลค่ะ Good afternoon everyone. We are Iron Women from MUIES. And today we are here to talk about this silent but serious issue, why it demands attention, and how our solution, irony pads, can target this group. Heavy menstrual bleeding, or HMB, is not just a menstrual inconvenience. It is a medical condition that quietly drains iron from the body month after month. When bleeding is heavier or longer than normal, the body loses blood, and with it, iron. Iron is essential for producing hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen to every organ, muscle, and cell. When the body loses more iron than it replaces, iron deficiency begins, often long before anemia is diagnosed. In Thailand, about 18% of girls aged 15 to 19 experience heavy menstrual bleeding. Among women taking anti-thrombotic medication, the number rises to 25%, placing them at an even greater risk. Physically, iron deficiency causes fatigue, weakness, shortness of breath, dizziness, and reduced endurance because the body is not receiving enough oxygen. Cognitively, it affects concentration, memory, and performance. Emotionally, it lowers motivation and mood. Over time, chronic iron depletion can strain the heart, progress to anemia, and even affect fertility and long-term reproductive health. Yet, heavy menstrual bleeding is often normalized, and iron deficiency is usually detected only after symptoms worsen. And that gap in early detection is where our innovation begins.
Now that we know that heavy menstrual bleeding leads to iron loss and health impacts, to correct this, education and early recognition could enable timely treatment to stop iron loss. But if iron deficiency has already started, early recognition and supplement could help restore that lost iron before short and long-term impacts occur. With today's practices, the amount of blood loss is measured based upon the number of pads used per day. However, the proportion of menstrual fluid that is actual blood varies widely, ranging from 2 to 82%, which makes accurate estimation very difficult. So with today's gold standard, the alkaline hemoglobin method, it gives accurate results, but since it requires chemical reagents, it's not accessible for general public use since it cannot be done without medical professionals. And on the other hand, the self-assessment pictorial method is a more accessible and common way to measure, but since it relies on visual observation, it is inherently subjective and tends to vary between users. Addressing the limitations of these methods, the spectroscopic optical absorption offers an accurate and accessible solution, making measurement more suitable for self-use. This method uses red and infrared lights to analyze how hemoglobin absorbs specific wavelengths. So, to prove this method, the graph here, the red and blue lines show the measured oxy and deoxy tissue hemoglobin, while the dotted black line is the ideal concentration in the prepared sample. As you can see here, the lines are very closely aligned, which demonstrates how this method can accurately capture the concentration of tissue hemoglobin. Furthering this finding, the graph here shows the measured and ideal hemoglobin concentration that is very highly correlated, which shows that this method not only works with large samples, but it is also sensitive enough to measure low concentrations as well. So this is the method that we are interested in integrating into our innovation. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we proudly present irony pads.
When we talk about how heavy menstrual bleeding and iron loss, we're not just talking about fatigue. We're talking about the silent physiological decline that affects cognition, strength, and long-term health span. Yet intervention usually happens only after symptoms disrupt daily life. That is the gap. Menstrual iron loss is recurring, cumulative, and it's rarely tracked. Without routine monitoring, decline is normalized and screening comes too late. Ironi Pads directly addresses that gap. We introduce passive menstrual biosensing, transforming a routine hygiene product into an early warning health monitor platform. Ironi Pads look and feel normal, but inside they integrate 4 scientifically supported components. First, a medical-grade absorbent layer stabilizes fluid distribution. Second, microfluidic channels guide a controlled sample to the center for consistent measurement. Third, a sealed optical sensor strip analyzes hemoglobin's optical behavior. And fourth, a passive NFC chip wirelessly transfers summarized data when tapped by a phone. No batteries, no charging. Importantly, the sensing module is fully sealed within the pad and positioned in a clean outer layer. Users do not interact with the exposed absorbent surface. Data is transferred through the dry backing, after which the pad is disposed immediately. Inside the sensing chamber are 3 elements: a red LED, an infrared LED, and a photodetector. Hemoglobin absorbs red and infrared lights differently depending on concentration. As the light passes through the sample, the photodetector measures intensity variation, and a calibration algorithm standardizes the signals across the pads. This optical principle is already validated in pulse oximetry and wearable biosensors. Our innovation is applying it in a sealed, disposable format, embedding sensing into a behavior that's already happening monthly. Once captured, the app applies a proportional model. Estimated hemoglobin loss is proportional to hemoglobin concentration multiplied by pad amount. This generates an iron loss index, a cycle-based trend scale rather than raw laboratory units. Instead of waiting for fatigue, dizziness, or impaired performances, users see patterns early. The app presents 3 essential outputs: an iron stability status, green, yellow, or red, a cycle-to-cycle trend graph showing direction of change, and recommendation prompts such as maintaining iron intake, considering ferritin screening, or seeking clinical evaluation. Users may optionally enter recent lab hemoglobin or ferritin values for personalization. The workflow is effortless. Wear the pad, remove it, hold it near your phone, dispose of it. No added burden, no behavioral change. And this is how we solve the pain point. We take something invisible, cumulative iron loss, and make it measurable. We take something delayed, clinical detection, and make it earlier. We take something normalized, heavy bleeding, and give it structured monitoring. By embedding sensing into a routine product, Ironi Pads produces longitudinal tracking where none previously existed. Our planned next steps focus on prototype feasibility, clinical validations against serum ferritin changes, cost-effectiveness analysis, expansion to monitor response to HMB therapy, and strategic market deployment. Even today, the impact is clear. Ironi Pads convert recurring blood loss into detectionable insight and enables earlier decisions before decline affects daily function. Longevity depends on preserving cognitive function, energy stability, and physical resilience. Ironi Pads support that stability by detecting early trend shifts before they become limiting. This is not just a product. It is a preventive interface between biology and everyday life. Ironi Pads, turning cycles into signals. ขอบคุณค่ะ